Yo, he just gonna leave them out there? Or why they waiting outside as the bridesmaids? Alright, this is one of my first videos on the channel, so I want to kind of explain what I'm going to be doing here based on the type of video I'm going to do today, which is Bible stories, a little background, and some takeaways. So that's what we're going to do today. The only way I know how to do this story is to read it, so I am going to read the story. Maybe I'll figure out a way to make that a little better for YouTube, but for right now, I'm just going to read it from my phone because it has the message version. And then I'm going to give some background, and we're going to talk about some takeaways, short and sweet, and then hopefully you get encouraged. Alright, here we go. We're going to be reading the story of the virgins, or the bridesmaid, depending on bridemaids, depending on which version or translation you're reading from. Alright, this is in Matthew 25, and it reads, God's kingdom is like 10 young virgins who took oil lamps and went out to greet the bridegroom. 5 were silly and 5 were smart. The silly virgins took lamps, but no extra oil. The smart virgin took jars of oil to feed their lamps. The bridegroom didn't show up when they expected him, and they all fell asleep. In the middle of the night, someone yelled out, "He's here! The bridegroom's here! Go out and greet him!" The 10 virgins got up and got their lamps ready. The silly virgin said to the smart ones, "Our lamps are going out. Lend us some of your oil." They answered, "There might not be enough to go around. Go buy your own." They did, but while they were out buying oil, the bridegroom arrived. When everyone who was there to greet him had gone into the wedding feast, the door was locked. Much later, the other virgins, the silly ones, showed up and knocked on the door saying, "Master, we're here. Let us in." He answered, "Do I know you? I don't think I know you. So stay alert. You have no idea when he might arrive." That's the story. There's a lot going on there. A little background. Without going into too many details, some of the background of that story is in first century weddings or Jewish weddings were nothing like the American weddings that I've seen or been a part of. And so I had to go do some research and like, yo, he just gonna leave them out there? Or why they waiting outside as the bridesmaids? In certain translations, they call some bridesmaids, not virgins. So why they waiting outside as bridesmaids? Why they not up in there taking pictures with everybody else? First of all, this first century. But I'm thinking like that, right? And so when I do some research, I find out that they had more than one type of party. So their receptions were a lot different from what we do today. For example, one of the things they did was they would have some celebrations at the bride's home, and then they would have celebrations at the groom's home. They would have a little time in between for the bride and the groom to have some time to themselves. And then they would go to the groom's home finally, but on their way there, it would already be nighttime. And so they would need something to light the streets. There were no street lights, there were no cars, there were no like flashlights. So they had to have some light to know where they were going, one. And another reason why they had light was so that they could identify with people who were friends of the bridegroom. More on that later. And so to keep people who were not a part of that procession from coming and joining in, or like some random people off the street who didn't know anything about it, who was just going to show up, keep that from happening. Another purpose of the torch was to let them know who was supposed to be there. All right. And so these 10 virgins, or these 10 bridesmaids, were waiting for the bridegroom and his friends to come through so they can join the party at his house. All right. Well, the problem was this time, this particular bridegroom was a little later than what they expected. And so they had prepared to go to the party, but they weren't expecting to have to wait that long, except the wise ones. All right. And so that is why they were out there waiting, because I had to know that. I don't know if you wanted to know that, but I had to know, why were they out there waiting anyway? Why they weren't with him in the first place? Well, that was their custom, to wait. That group was going to his home for the rest of the party. Man, they partied too. 7 straight days they partied. And as you can see, once everybody who was supposed to be there was there, they closed them doors. Like, hey, no party, wedding crashers here. All right. So 3 takeaways from the story. 3 takeaways. Some of that we kind of talked about, but the first one, he already identified the people, but you want to be wise. And in this story, wisdom looks like being prepared. And so if you're wise, or if I want to be wise, I want to be prepared. The second takeaway is don't pity the fool. Oh my goodness, how easy would it have been for them to be like, you know what, I can give you some of my oil so we can all party together. But if you listen to the wise women, they were saying we may not have enough for ourselves. So no pity here. You have enough money, you had enough money to go buy your own, go do that. And then the third takeaway is let your light shine. Wow, it's interesting that they identify people who were supposed to be going into the party with the light that they had. It's crazy, right? All right. So be ready, but not just ready to show up, but ready to have some staying power with your readiness. Let your light shine. All right. So again, be wise. Don't pity the fool. Get us in some trouble pitying fools. And let your light shine. It's been your girl Katie. Hopefully you are encouraged, inspired, learn something from the story that maybe I didn't even say. But be encouraged, encourage somebody else, and live abundantly.